Hi. It's time for another reading of Failsafe, the Kennedy Curse fused with science fiction, written by me, Susan MeeLing, Reverend MeeLing, Reverend Susan MeeLing, Lady Dori, Belle, a few other names. I'm going to read it super scary-ish compared to how I could. I could make it sound fun, but it's supposed to be a horror. So, I'm gonna read it scary. Making a point to stop by his private office outside of Langley, the agent met with his confidant. Giving his contact the necessary information and confirmation of successful transactions, he was dismissed until further notice. Walking out of the meeting, he mentally made a note of the multitude of documentation which poured in while he was overseas. Many specified log notations of odd occurrences about Maggie and sightings of unexplainable things only she could do. The variety overwhelmed him when he was inside, looking through the papers scattered all over his desk. Getting closer to the pure defiance to the CIA, the agent was ready to add items to her timeline. The frequency of events startled him, but the agent continued on his path. Preparing to leave for the earliest morning flight, he packed quickly to visit the Asian regions. Without the need for sleep because of the upcoming airplane travel, he busied himself by studying the map of Maggie in her timelines. Shortly, it was time for him to leave for the airport, and just when the taxi cab pulled into the drive, the agent pulled the last bag out of the house. Locking the doors behind him and walking to the yellow vehicle, the driver stepped out to help load the trunk. Getting into the back of the car to leave for the airport, the Indian driver asked of the agent's travel plans. Too tired from the lack of sleep, he blurted he was looking to seek spiritual answers to assist in a real-time issue. The Indian listened as the agent mumbled about odd happenings and sightings within one single child. Knowing there were people who needed to know the purpose of a youth's ability, he needed to know more. The agent admitted he needed to know whether to allow her to disappear from his memories or to let her live. Driving with the headlights on the road, the driver told the agent if there were doubts, there was a root to that tree. Giving him several other bits of advice when on the journey of discovery, the driver warned not to be fooled by false prophets. While the path to the airport was darker than usual, the agent ignored the lack of lighting. Inquiring which way the taxi driver was taking him to the airport, the Indian told him he knew of a backway shortcut. Going along with the ride while listening to the agent speak of his need to know, the chaperone drove the vehicle. The next blink of the agent's eyes, and the cab was pulling up to the airport unloading area. In another blink, he was standing alongside of the driver, listening to him speak, telling the agent to be careful of which is trickery and which is genuine. The cab was gone, and the agent's bags were on a rolling rack. With the ticket in his hand, he walked into the airport. Check-ins went smoothly before loading into the aircraft to take off from the runway. Falling asleep within moments of the plane in flight, He fell asleep along the window quickly. The CIA agent awoke just before the food tray was just about to go around with the flight attendants. Happy to eat a hot meal for the first time in a while, but it was finished before his stomach was full. Trying to get comfortable for the last few hours of the trip, he dozed in and out until arriving in Japan. After arriving within the terminal to get off of the plane, he quickly rented the necessary transportation to just a few temples. Similar experiences within the temples as when speaking to the rabbis. He left angrily for the airport. Traveling towards the areas of Bangladesh, he thought the airborne experience felt longer than the trip from the United States of America to Japan. Finding locals who would know how to assist the spiritual endeavors needed for understanding, the scooter ride was a fast trip compared to the mule rental. Requesting a guide to take him to the nearest monastery, the lead took him into a hidden grove of trees instead. Confused upon the arrival, the male dismounted off of the mule that was needed after the scooter and walked into a small hut. When the agent realized he may want to follow the guide with the sun setting over the horizon, the CIA agent ran through the fence into the hut. Not a soul was inside of what seemed to be a small shack on the exterior, but a deceivingly interior that was of a mansion within the walls of the feeble wooden structure. Gorgeous woven tapestries covered the wooden slats, while the stone tile ground had intricate rugs to protect. Incense plumes swept into the room from all corners, flowing around the agent's feet, filling the room without the ability to see anything but the smoke. He did not cough once, thinking to himself of the oddities. Feeling similar to the material inside of a stretching type of toys, as he began expanding slowly to snap back into his average size. All of the smoke was gone, leaving the remnants only of the perfume, and him surrounded by nothingness. A cloaked figure floated towards the agent, wearing white velvet with fur lining at the edges of the hood. Barely able to make the figure out from the nothing surrounding him, he jumped as the silhouette removed the headdress. Less than a few feet away from his face, he began to calm quickly, gazing into her eyes. The deepest charcoal black skin covered the most beautiful face of a woman who only spoke through her piercing emerald green eyes. Her eyes flickered with lighter greens and blues, similar to the hottest part of the flame. Long burning ember red, flowing soft hair fell out of the hood, bouncing at the small of her back when the material came to a rest onto her shoulders. Her skin was as soft as silk, delicate as a feather, and strikingly, exquisitely amazing. Moving closer to the agent to stand within her ethereal toes, touching his polished shoes, he nodded with understanding. Shortly after the conversation, just with the woman's eyes, she walked away while pulling the hood back over her head. Disappearing into the nothingness, the agent stood in awe and silence. Awoken on a seat by an attendant, the agent asked which airport the plane had landed in. awoken on a seat, chuckling softly when she informed him he was not on a plane, but they were at the end of that train route. She asked if he wanted to purchase a return ticket before the train left, to return from whence he came. Asking what continent he was in, the attendant told the agent they were in China. She looked out the window of the car before asking him if he would prefer to leave the caravan to explore the surroundings, reminding the CIA agent he could return for the locomotive whenever he felt was appropriate, but he needed to make a choice quickly. While stating he wanted to continue, the agent was standing at the base of a mountain, leaving the station to explore the wilderness. The boss kept moving. Walking along the green vegetation and bamboo shoots lining the path, the agent arrived at a set of stone stairs. Without anything in sight at the top of the hill, he began walking upward curiously. Each individual stone carved the staircase and had been steeper than the last, but he did not feel shortness of breath. Surprisingly, only to feel a strain within his legs and feet. His mind pushed him forward. He passed a lone two-person bench set on one side. Feeling he was being watched by multiple unseen entities as he passed the empty chair, the agent shivered. Shaking the sensation off of his shoulders, he pressed up the stairs. A gust of wind blew through the single hill after completely losing sight of the solitary bench when looking back. The seemingly infinite staircase allowed the agent to overlook the fields to see a massive cemetery. Hundreds of thousands of buried remains filled that hillside, and he was able to see the stone paths to wander through, taking a few minutes to soak in the oddities and the beauty. He could not help but notice the serenity within his surroundings and within himself. Feeling as if he could scream at the top of his lungs, he knew it would and could be without disturbing anyone. Choosing to look upward, the boss continued walking up the path of stairs, losing himself within his thoughts while making his way upward even further. It seemed only a few seconds before he stood at the top. Looking ahead to the granite-carved gazebo, he noticed the intricately woven wrought iron decorations. Without any warning, the skies turned dark, illuminated by a few stars in the night sky. No moon in sight created an unsettling sensation inside the pit of his soul. But he awaiting the next event to take place, he kept his attention focused to the gazebo, noticing a granite-created altar within the front portion of the structure. The rest faded into the night. Turning around, with the feeling of being watched, he observed a flowing haze coming up to surround that gazebo. Two small deer appeared from the fog, with innocence glowing around every bit of their being. Slowly making their way up the last steps onto the granite floor, the deer gracefully walked on top of the seemingly translucent stone. The agent remained still while he observed the two walk separately around the circle to him. Kneeling to the floor while the animals watched his movements and breath, he remained enchanted. One deer remained off to the side and watching him, while the other animal moved closer. Slowly taking one step closer to the CIA agent at that time, the deer made the final step to his knees, keeping his hands to the sides while both animals observed and judged the agent. He lowered his eyes not to create aggressive sensations to the deer, having the altar to his back and the stairs behind the two deer. Looking him over and sniffing his clothes before both of the deer closed their eyes while he followed suit. Within his mind's eye, the animals transformed into human figures, speaking with him of the needs and requirements, conversing amongst the night sky. The three exchanged information over time. And that's a quick little reading of Failsafe, the Kennedy Curse Fused with Science Fiction Fantasy, written by me, Susan MeeLing. You can go to my website, www.susanmeeling.com, and you can order Failsafe, the Kennedy Curse Fused with Science Fiction, as well as all of the other books I wrote. The links are in the pictures. Thanks for tuning in. Like and share this video, and make sure always to watch my official videos. Subscribe to my channel. Have a good one.